11:35, and I have to give an apology when we talked about this presentation. Something registered in the back of my mind of getting it on the following 2 weeks, but you guys are in town and we accommodate.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
And also, it's mostly for information, I'm familiar with it, but when the first topic came up, I asked our legal counselor, is there any legal concerns? And he said no. He said, well, what about that incident over on the coast some years ago where the GPS got lost? And he said, yeah, there's probably some concern. But I'd like for you guys to address why this is not the same as what that scenario was, until we solve that concern.
Okay.
So it's all yours.
All right, where do we want to start? You want to start with that first?
Oh,
Let's start with that first. And
Yeah.
then
Did you want to address that?
Yeah, but rather it's all that concern. So, when you're working with GPS devices, most people are familiar these days with what you have in your car. So you're going to punch in an address and say, I want to go to this location. It's going to compute the route for you, and you really may not know exactly what way it's going to take you. When we do GPS when we do trails, we actually draw a track out and we follow that track. So we've created the route that we want to go on. When a person gets in their car and they punch in a location and say, I want to go to spot X on the earth, if that GPS comes up with a route that takes you on a road that's terrible or not passable or has a winter issue, you're not going to know that until, a lot of times, until you get there. So you're not actually looking at a map or seeing what's going on in that location. The difference between that scenario, and I think that's what happened with that, and this has happened in other areas too. There's multiple cases where people have gotten lost, you know, in all kinds of different scenarios, following an automotive GPS.
Okay, Commissioner Winter loaned me his GPS one time, and it noted me on one curve, and did not note me on the second curve, and I almost went off the road.
Yeah. Well, here's another example. My wife and I were...
Do what we can to get rid of you.
We head to Utah and ride down there fairly often, and so we were headed there one time, and we had a newer vehicle, and I thought, let's just punch in the you know, where we're going, see how long it says it's going to take us to get there. Well, we headed out. We get to Burns, and as soon as we hit the outskirts of Burns on Highway 20 East, it wanted us to take every right-hand turn on all those roads that head to the south down there, clear off the highway and out there in the middle of nowhere. Now, if we'd have been a public, you know, someone in the public that didn't know better and followed that, we'd have been in a bad way. Plus, we had a camper in the back, so we weren't going to do it anyway, but I knew better, but I was really amazed at how inaccurate that was. So this is the scenario that we're talking about with that concern, is that type of scenario, which is not at all applicable to what we're doing. When we send somebody, or if they're out there and they find one of our waypoints, they're just going to know that that's where they're at on that spot. Now, if we give them the list of waypoints, they're going to have options of how to get to that place, but they're already out there for that reason, to go explore whatever they're doing. And so if they hit, let's say they take off and they're headed towards a waypoint and they run into an obstacle, they can always go back to the previous waypoint real easily, okay? And obviously that person that had the issue there was a point in time where they should have went, hey, this isn't working out, I better turn around and go back. And they obviously didn't, you know, maybe they thought they were too far or they had a fuel issue or whatever. But
Wait, my recollection of that event with that particular man and his family was that it's not that his device gave that as the suggested route. He just saw the route. He saw the line and he was following the line. That's the word I got on that.
yeah.
We run into it in Lake County here up, at Silver Lake, if you have the shortest route in there, it'll take you through a forest road, and we end up with trucks stuck up on a county road almost every winter because their GPS says to take this road because it's the shortest route, and
Right.
we have it happen right here in Lake County pretty regularly.
And you need to press the fastest route because then it keeps you on pavement. Because you can cruise at 65. The fastest route is what you want to punch.
Yeah, versus
Mine
the
brings up
shortest, yeah.
shortest or fastest.
Yeah.
You go the fastest, you won't get on those dirt roads.
But even then, you know, you could get, you know, they're
No,
not,
some
yeah,
places,
that's a good
yeah.
point. part of our concept with this is we wanted to be careful about putting forth in a way that we thought that people would interpret us as creating new routes or trail systems or something like that, which we're not doing. We are taking existing legal routes that are, as a nonprofit, we can legally post those anywhere we want to, okay, in our organization, on our mapping, and do that. So,
You're talking about on Forest Service? Or
yeah, any of those, yeah. And an example of that is the Backcountry Discovery Route, which runs right through your area here, that was legally closed by a court in Portland. But that route is still open and viable and highly used by the dual sport crowd. And the maps are produced over in Eugene and sold by a nonprofit organization over there. And so they're being published, and that's still out there. And there's been no repercussions on that in the last 15 years. So not a problem on that. But basically our program, we're going to show you, this what we have up here is talking about your county roads, which is a separate thing. But on the Waypoint program, we're just letting people know where they're at on the map, trying to help them navigate to the next point. And there'll be options of how they get there, but we're not going to, if we ever do put routes on there, we're not going to put routes on there that are hazardous routes. I mean, we're going to put just a main route on there that's a way out for people, so they can find their way out on that.
And that we've traveled ourselves.
And then we'll ground truth everything. You know, we've already got a lot of that. We've been working on this for 3 years, you know, so we have a lot of data already.
I would imagine you probably have a disclaimer, travel during
Yeah.
what appropriate weather conditions, not responsible if you travel during
Exactly.
winter conditions.
Yeah, but my feeling is that these markers are actually going to improve people's ability to find their way back or get it. Because when they find a waypoint, if they're able to access the data that goes along with that, they're going to know exactly where they're at. And if they can figure out where north and south is, especially, they're going to easily be able to tell which direction to go. But let's say they go for a ways and they hit another waypoint, that gives them a 2-point location, and then for sure they're going to know what direction they need to go. You know, once you find that second one, you're going to figure out which direction you're traveling if you don't know already.
Giving a lot of credit to the human race.
I know that.
We have to.
But, you know, I think that in the remote areas out there, that, you know, the usage is not going to be high anyway. It's going to be moderate, you know, at best. And so our main purpose with this project was to help get some folks down here, not to overrun the county, but to help get some people down here. Just like Dave, he's our friend. You know, he's down here today. We're staying in the motel tonight, and then, you know, we're going to the store and things like that, because we want to bring people in the community and help them see what's here. Because this is a great place. It's a long drive down here, but I still like coming down here. Every time I get here, I'm happy I'm here. So
Yeah, we're gonna go for
we are riding Friday through, or Thursday through Saturday too.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, just remember, we don't have a deli or a bakery,
I
so.
know that. But you do have a Subway, and we like that.
We do, no, I mean,
Well,
I'm talking about at the grocery store.
Yeah.
The positive thing is that we don't predict to be overran, so when you come riding here, you get to ride without a whole lot of people in your way, and you get to enjoy it.
We do. And there's plenty of,
Quality.
it's a good quality experience. There's plenty of room for everybody, and it, you know, it's just good. We felt welcomed in the community by everybody. I mean, what I enjoy about here is it reminds me of, we're talking about, you know, Eastern Oregon growing up there. That's what I remember when I was a youth there, growing up in John Day and Dayville, and then we moved to Bend. And Bend was that way when we first moved there too. But you know, when you walk into the store, whoever's standing next to you, you'll say hello, or you'll say hello to them. We've had at least a couple of conversations with people in Richie's place today, you know, that have just walked in the door and we're standing there talking before they're getting help, you know. And I really like it. Yeah.
That doesn't happen where I'm from.
No, that doesn't happen where we're from anymore either. It used to, but.
And we like to keep it that way.
Yeah, I would like to keep it that way.
Well, we wait back, we're waiting, so. Okay, have we covered that enough?
I think so.
you know, if you have questions on that, make sure to ask us, because we want to resolve that if there's concern there for sure.
And your relationship with the DO Land Management and Forest Service on this project?
Right now, we have approval from the BLM, the Lakeview District of the BLM, to do the project. And another thing that's going along with that right now is that we're in conversation with them. They apparently have some signage material or monies available too. And so we want to help them upgrade the general signage that's out there while we're out there. So those road signs that are up there that are deteriorated or gone or shot, we've talked to Chris about them getting those made up for us, and then while we're out working on the other project, we'll start upgrading those signs too. So what I like about that is it helps, you know, when you go into a community, if things look like they're cared for, then people care for them. You know, and it's the same thing I think on the public lands. When you go out there, if it looks like somebody's been out there kind of upkeeping things, then the public tends to respect that a little more. It takes time, you know, I mean, the first time you put the sign up, it might get a bullet hole in it, but in time, people start respecting that, and they see that there's care to the lands, and they start, you know, taking on some ownership.
Institute a little bit of private ownership.
That's exactly right, yeah.
I have a little to add on that between the Forest Service. You know, I've been in conference with Catherine Callahan. Catherine quizzed me extensively about what we were doing. She is requesting, as soon as the SB 192 is approved and we know the verbiage, she wants us to bring her the corridors that need to be connected, and she will do everything she can in their next map review to make sure that those roads are available for the trail purpose. And she's also going to be adding roads that are not on the map that she wants on there, and that's the one back up here, because it was mostly private, they didn't put it on there, but she's wanting to put it back on. She's working really hard to make this get all better around here, so, but we gotta get this built done.
So Rob, on that point, you know, when the new maps came out for the Forest Service, and there were all the private land, for the most part, the roads didn't show up because they said it was illegal for them to do that. So she's now talking about.
She's talking about trying to remedy that situation. And
Well,
I
maybe
don't know
she's
how.
using the same concept of the nonprofit, because I think the Forest Service fits that category, so.
But she says there's roads that aren't on there that we need to address, so.
Are you talking to Jeep Trail, Rob?
Yeah.
I put in for an amendment for that to be added on.
Well, they're very aware of it, and they have to do a review every year, she says, on the map. And she says, as soon as you get this law done, I want to see it so we can start making sure everything is.
Well, I tell you, I've been working quite a bit with Connie Cummins, the forest supervisor, and on the travel management, she's been very,
Receptive.
yeah, that'd be, with the guidelines of where they're at, and I think we've made a lot of progress there. And so we need people to put the amendments in, we need Rob, keep working with them. Make
No,
sure,
that's what we're gonna do.
even go past Catherine to Connie if you get the chance to amend the board.
Well, actually, she's
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
Catherine is going to put us in touch with everybody when we do this.
Excellent.
And Park and Rec is going to analyze the corridors that need the assistance, and we're gonna take her list, so.
And Dave out at the ranger station, yes. Thank you.
Are you working with the countywide recreation group too?
Park and Rec group.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll talk about that. Or do you need to go?
Yeah, I've
Okay,
got a
we'll,
meeting.
we'll talk to you about that, because that's important, it's wonderful. Okay.
I'll get fined for not being there, so will you pay it?
No, but we'll reserve you a spot to put it in when you get there.
Okay.
Next meeting.
I think Rob will get fined for taking you away from the meeting that you're not.
Yeah, we talked about a rotary, and we have a district governor here today. Just for the people on the audience, when you mentioned the word Chris, that was Chris Bishop, the recreation person with the land management, and Catherine Callahan is the Forest Service property and management.
Right.
Always like to make sure that people watching knows what we're talking about.
All right. Yeah, we've met with, Chris is who we're working with in BLM, and we haven't met with Catherine, but we have met with David out here, who's the
The
ranger.
district ranger.
Yeah, and so, you know,
What's his
he's been
last
trying to help us too, so,
Do you remember his last name?
certainly to be, he's new. So, sorry, there we go. Burrell.
I have to look it up.
Yeah, sounds good, okay.
But district ranger, big.
Yes.
And one of the things that Wade brought up to me this morning, a really good idea, is that we have all these individuals that are talking to BLM, Forest Service individually. But wouldn't it be nice if there was a small committee of these like-minded people locally and as well as afar that could coordinate all these Forest Service and BLM access issues and then present it as a committee, a local committee rather than individuals? Might have a little bit more oomph. And we talked to Richie over the Polaris dealer, and I want to talk to Rob about that. Haven't talked to him yet about it. Rick, the road master, and you gentlemen as well. You guys want to add anything to that?
No, I just, we just thought maybe that might work better, because you're getting, the aspect of different agencies. We're all trying to do kind of the same thing, but it's important that we're staying together on that. So if John and I go into the Forest Service and talking to him about things that we're looking at, and then somebody else goes in, then we kind of overload them, and it can kind of clog the process a little bit. So we just thought maybe a suggestion or consideration of a committee, and like John said, a small one, just so that we can kind of compare notes a little bit before we go to those agencies. That we get all things covered. Because part of that too is that we don't want to miss something. When we're working on something, we don't want to miss something that somebody else wants to do. And another just element of that is it just takes time. I mean, I've learned that being on the Parks Committee since 2008 and then working with agencies the last few years, is that if you try to go for the whole enchilada up front, then it tends to get pushed back pretty quickly, and it clogs the process. And so that's another reason a committee would be good, because then that can be discussed in the committee, and the needs can be prioritized, or the wants can be prioritized a little better.
Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Are you talking a committee that's formed by the nonprofit that invites people there, a county committee, an ATV group, them get organized, have a committee? Because of, we talk about that and people form committees and everything, but if you're serious about that and making a small group, I would think that the nonprofit side of it would be a great place for that committee, and have representation either from the county or from the OHA, the Hunters Association, Forest Service and everything. Sort of take some of the government element out of it, that the government's invited to it, that it's a nonprofit committee. Brings a little different perspective, and then you bring the government element into it for some of the government perspective. Just a thought, but if you're serious about putting a committee together,
Well, I think
that through.
John, we could do that, don't you think? We could do that.
The Oregon Outback Waypoints Association, that's a nonprofit. We've had it for 2 years now.
And that's just one commissioner's view, guys.
Well, I fully agree, it needs a central body, and my thoughts is, if it's formed by the government works in mysteriously slow ways, and the recipients don't always have ownership, but if it's the local ATV groups or something like, there's ownership there, and that keeps it alive and flourishing.
And having that governmental representation there as well means that when we do finally go to an agency, that at least the ideas that we present have been vetted through several facets.
Right, that's a critical element of it.
Okay.
Yeah, so I appreciate that input on that. So, we're getting to be trusted a little more, I think, in the community, hopefully. We've been down here a lot, and I hope that you see that we're genuine and that we're here to help the community. This isn't a personal thing. I'm self-employed. When I'm here today, I'm away from work today. So, we're doing this because we like the community. We like coming down here to recreate, and just want to help with that. So, I guess on the committee thing, we could work with that and maybe have a proposal of what that would look like. We talk about Richie, we want him on there. We have a lot of knowledgeable people that we need from this area. I was thinking of Daniel Kay, he knows the area good and the routes. I was just talking to him this morning. He's in our neck of the woods over there in Warren Springs today, but.
Plus, he's our emergency services coordinator.
Yeah.
So these routes and trails can be very important on search and rescue and other things.
Absolutely.
Right. And another thing, as Senate Bill 192 comes in, and the possibility of identifying corridors and routes that enter the highway and come off of the highway, because that's gonna be an ODOT thing. That committee could have an element in that too. You'd already have a local committee that's a portion of that form, so.
Yeah, and for the audience on the camera, the Senate Bill 192 went through the legislature last year, and it's to identify possibilities of opening state highways to ATV use. Like we're already kind of agreeing, like here in town, they had to cross the highway, and technically that's prohibited. So we get that resolved. And then out on, let's say, 395 or 31 or 140, if a county road comes in and an ATV comes to it, to cross it, that's being resolved too. But if they need to go down the highway, state ODOT managed to gain another county road, the Senate Bill 192 is addressing that facet of use. But what we're talking about is in addition to just a highway, but points out and above.
Right, right. And we're glad you're on that committee or that work group too, because it really applies to this area. Is probably the strongest area right now that's gonna utilize that need, so.
Lakeview is always acknowledged in that committee. I
Right.
appreciate that.
I think you folks are leading the way, and they're constantly referring to what happened down here in the Lake County as a whole, to be representing the model of how it can work.
And credit go to Commissioner Winters. He headed up that ATV on county roads scenarios.
Been great.
Okay.
Should I go ahead and do this?
Yeah, I think can we go, if we're finished there, let's go ahead and move into it. This is our proposal. I'm gonna let, well, John has put this together, so he's on that.
Yeah.
Here we go.
I can just- So he's self-employed. I'm retired Army, so after I retired from the Army, I went to state parks. I worked for a number of years, got tired of working for government altogether and just decided to retire. So I'm happily former agency, whatever. So, but I kept my my affiliation with the off-road community when I left state parks. I was the ATV safety coordinator for the state. And so I brought a lot of contacts with me and a lot of the desires with me.
Well, that safety aspect is very important to the three of us because we want to make sure everything is safe to avert what we had talked about earlier.
Yes. Yeah, and it coincides with the ODOT's desire to make whatever happens in the other counties safety oriented. Well, as you gentlemen remember, you passed an ordinance here a couple of years ago. In your Appendix A, there was a certain number of county highways and roads that were closed to ATV traffic. You also know that Lake County applied for and got a grant for signage on these roads, or signage on the Lake County roads. There was another companion grant that was put forward to the Central Oregon Motorcycle Group out of Bend for equipment and vehicles and parts and that kind of thing. The two grants together allow Wade and I to go out there and post those 3-digit markers that we were talking about in BLM land and Forest Service land. But it also fits in great with what we're talking about here with the closed roads, because your immediate need is posting closure signs on these closed roads. And it actually benefits the riding community as well as the non-riding community to have those things posted. And we don't want people on there if they're not supposed to be there, because it hurts everybody. And so I came up with, well, Wade came up with some ideas, and I came up with a map that showed those routes that was listed in Appendix A. I want to go through those, starting with, I think I start with North County and work my way down. And I was hoping to coordinate this with your roadmaster, Rick, beforehand, but was unfortunately unable to, but we still want to do that, because nothing that I show here will ever come into existence without his full approval from the county. Every single sign, how we mount it, what the sign looks like, and so on, to make the county happy. So if I show sign locations or pictures of what a sign would look like, all that's capable of changing based on Rick's input. Okay.
And his input on what the sign is and whether it's applicable underneath his domain.
Yes. Yep. That's just the verbiage of attachment A. I put this in there in case anybody wants it. We can give you a copy of this as well. I think we sent it to you. Ready? Did we send it to you?
Yeah, I sent this PowerPoint to you, and I can leave this thumbed right here today if you want to keep that.
Yeah, my schedule has been all over the place, so I haven't read all my emails
Okay.
in a couple of months.
That's the way it works
We
down
just
here.
appreciate that you have the time to see this, that's great.
So starting with South County Road, South Lake County, I'm sorry, so I'm starting south and then working my way north, obviously. Some of the language was a little bit sketchy, so maybe you can correct me if I made any mistakes. But this goes from the California border up to Highway 140, basically along 1-11. And you have some local names for those roads that I don't recall right now, but it is in two different sections. One is, oh, I see, I have it up there. 1-11 West Side Road from the California border to Tunnel Hill Road. And then Lake County, Highway 1-11 Tunnel Hill Road from West Side Road to Highway 31.
31 is,
Yeah.
is wrong.
Is it, should it be?
That's Highway 140.
Okay, I'll fix that. I think on the picture, I think that's Highway 140. I don't know where I got that from. So it's two sections. I put up some suggested points where we would put the signs in, and that would be at T intersections where people would likely be coming onto their, in an off-road vehicle, and we'd want them to know right away that they're not supposed to be there. And of course, the two ends of each of those two sections. So there's the initial 4, and then there was another, I think there's a total of 5 signs that were going to be at the intermediary points where the roads tee in or cross.
So I need to ask this question right away, because this was one of our biggest concerns several years ago, is not the signage, but the maintenance and upkeep of the signage.
Yes, sir.
And whenever, to put those there's going to have to be an agreement with the county or with our road official. But the concern, you guys have a plan to maintain them and keep them up, because that was our biggest concern as commissioners. We don't want to take on,
Yeah.
our road fund is just dying, so.
That's the goal of our nonprofit, is to stay in existence forever and to forever maintain these signs through, we'll always be looking for additional sources of income, of funding, I'm sorry, not
Sure.
income. But whether it's through state parks or one of the off-road.
But there's no expectation for the county to take ownership or maintain or take care of the signs.
None that we see unless we both fall apart completely.
Yeah, well, yeah, and then we're working on succession too right now, which will come in time. You know, we've got other volunteers that are stepping in and ready to go. So can I say one thing on that too, is that on this first round of signage, we'll probably buy some surplus material. In other words, when we come up with the sign that we want that says, you know, no OHV or ATV on that route, we'll make sure we have a little bit of extra material for that, you know, so that we don't spend everything and not have anything left to maintain. So, you know, we'll buy a few extra of everything and signposts, so we have something that ends up.
And the post today has to be to a certain standard, breakaway type stuff. You guys know all that, you're doing
Yeah.
all this.
Yeah, I looked on the site we went to, I looked at what is recommended for most of the counties, but I don't know your specific.
When you get a chance to visit with Rick.
Yeah, we'll do that. We're ready to go with that.
Okay.
So, yeah.
I didn't want to take away from the discussion, I just
No,
wanted
that's
to
good.
make sure we still the same where we've been 3 years ago, I believe we had that first discussion, 2 anyway.
Yeah, very good. And again, we won't do anything without full approval from everybody. So that takes care of the Lakeview area. And then the next part is the Silver Lake area, where there's a County Highway 4-10, that's Bear Flat Road. Both ends, one is the western extremity of the county there, and the other one is actually in the town of Silver Lake, where it bumps into Highway
31.
31.
Bear Flat Road comes in a mile or so just outside of Silver Lake and connects with Highway 31.
It's one of our closed ones, correct?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, because we have high
Yeah.
truck.
High truck traffic.
And that's why it's in this proposal, because it's in your attachment, your appendix A. And then the last one is the Fort Rock Christmas Valley area. To the best of my ability, that again, it was hard to decipher some of the Appendix A language, and I wanted to talk to someone about that. But there's two sections of this that were specified in the appendix. One was from Highway 31 intersection to Buick's Corner. And there was also appeared to be a little bit outside of Buick's Corner too that may not show on here, just a very small stretch of Buick Lane or Buick Road, I think it is. And then the County Road 514 that goes from that corner all the way to Highway 395. There's a lot of intersections out there. I just picked the ones that appeared to be the most likely that somebody in an off-road vehicle might come in on. So again, it's very few. In this slide, there's a total of 8 signs that I saw that would need to go up at least 8, possibly more. Again, with some input from the county road master. So this is the one of the signs that we found out there on the rock art site.
That's a new sign, they just came up with that one.
It's a typical looking sign that basically says you can't ride on the road or on the shoulder. And I think that's what you're looking for. And there's also some room on this sign for other information, like you could refer to the county ordinance and attachment on there, and possibly some other information as well. They're aluminum 18 by 24 inch. How we post them would be up to the county, whether we're allowed to attach them to something existing, but that may not be geographically feasible. And so the same provider also has the right kind of stakes that we can put in the ground to mount the sign individually.
The U-channel posts are the ones that are used in most places, the one with the holes in them, and there's different grades of those. So we're looking at that. There's kind of a middle grade one that classifies for most county most highway requirements, covers almost all the state highway requirements. So,
I'm gonna change gears a little, the mappage. When will we see a map?
Well, I figure that would be in our phase 2 of this project. We're in phase 1 right now, is just getting those points in the ground. We can't really produce a map until we have the points in the ground. And
when would you like to see a map?
Well, I'll tell you why I'm asking, because with this first discussion, especially with our local user group, that was discussed up front. And when we went specifically to Christmas Valley, with all of our hay growers up there, they were very concerned about the roads and clear understanding for people who come up to recreate the roads that they couldn't be on. I personally have promised them for the last year and a half that they're gonna see maps soon, and they're gonna be such that they'll be available like at the local grocery store and restaurants up there. I get that question every time I'm up there.
Well, John, we could produce pretty easily a map that shows the closed roads, similar to what you have up there, couldn't we?
mm-hmm.
And I think that we could put that in the scope of the funding of what we have for the Lake County grant. We could work that in there somehow with that.
Well, and if, in time that changed and became even a higher quality, that's great, but in the short run, that would help with a lot of the fears that folks have relative to it being wide open spaces, because no one knows, no one picks up the county ordinance and goes through there, reads that.
Well, and that's part of, that along with producing a map like that would be enough to give the folks confidence that don't know to be able to do it. And if they did get off, and they eventually, if we get the signs up, they're gonna see that they come up to an intersection, well, I can't go that way or this way. So, and it also helps them figure out where they're at, and if we're allowed to put a waypoint number in there too, that we could put on that map, then that helps them even more. So, we hear you on that. I think that, it's been my want to have those maps out as soon as we can get them out too, but we wanted to make sure we had all the data on, but we could produce a map like that for now.
Well, and when I've talked to Rob in the past, because he was the primary one, he made a good point with the state legislature and the crossings on state highways. It was desirable to have the first iteration kind of resemble where you could cross and some of that business too. So I understand that, but I think the most important part is just being able to show people where you can't go. And make it available to the users, and then our local publics feel much more confident that we're doing what we said we were gonna do.
The easiest thing would be also, the first thing we can do is have it rolled out on the website where they can download the map. And then there's a matter of producing the map and then distributing it around the local areas, the shops, the restaurants and such, in a format.
And once the county gets a GIS program that has a layer of county roads on it, it'd be easy to print out the
Is that
roads
a
and
plug,
non-used.
Commissioner?
Is that an issue?
Well, we're discussing about GIS, I'm just saying,
Just this
we don't
one.
have it yet.
We don't have it
I
yet.
thought all the counties had that.
Well, we have fractions. We have parts of it.
Okay. That's great.
On the signage, back to the signage there, and this is entirely up to the road official and what the laws are, but wouldn't it be great if there's cost savings that some of your signs could be attached to some of our existing posts so we don't end up with so much signage? I don't know, I know there's laws that allow, like stop signs, I don't need to put anything on a stop sign, but if there's a stop ahead sign, maybe it can be, but talk to Rick and find out on that, but any way that you can stretch the dollars out there and not clutter up a whole bunch extra, I'm just a supporter that way.
Absolutely, that would be our first choice.
Yeah. Yeah, we just, when I think of Utah, what I see them do there, it's kind of different. Different counties do things a little bit different. Some of them will mount, if they're closer to a community, they tend to mount the signs more on the existing posts, you know, like they're in town or something. But some of them, as you're out getting the rural, they'll put that sign just down from the stop sign or something so that it's visible from the intersection easily on an ATV, but it's not something else to look at.
You guys have already thought about it, so you'll
Yeah.
be there, but it just as we're talking, I was thinking.
Well,
Yeah.
I think it's an appropriate time too, because it's election season, and I drive back and forth from Paisley every day, and that very point, it's cluttered with all these election signs.
Yeah.
And there really should only be one.
Yes.
Well, we wouldn't want to confuse an election sign by posting one of ours.
No.
But, yeah, well, and we're gonna work fully with it, especially like John said with Rick, you know, make sure, we're here to do it your way. But we wanna facilitate, you know, getting it done and, you know, whatever you'll allow us to do, we wanna do, labor-wise. You know, we wanna make the impact, on your financial picture for the county as low as we can. That's why we went in for this separate grant, and we appreciate you applying for that, because that's our vehicle, so.
And I was so busy at that time that it just got past me and we got the grant.
You did a great job.
You did, it passed, so it's good.
It was one of the few grants that got approved that day.
But the catch on that is, now that we got the grant, is working together with the road department to facilitate our ATV ordinance in place.
We have, our grant will be funded in July, the first part of July. So we have a window here to get these things worked out, get a plan going, get our order put together of the signage materials so that we can push the button on that when the grant funds come available, so.
How much was the grant for?
It was, the total grant, let's see, the grant supplied funds were about 10,000 or 11,000.
The Lake County grant was roughly 10,000. Again, that was just for the signage and the posts that went in the ground, the Lake County specific hardware. The equipment and the rest of the stuff was more for the rest of the state, and that was over $30,000.
And that Lake County covered the Bureau of Land Management and the Forest Service.
The parts that are in Lake
And
County.
then
Yes,
Lake
but-
County roads that are open.
We want to start with Lake County. You know, I mean, do we agree on that? I mean, we want to help get the things done in Lake County, like get these signage.
The county
done, because we can work in the winter on some of that other stuff, you know, or we can start on that in different times of the year, but I think we need to look at what's the greatest need right now. And
Well, I think this proposal is probably the highest priority of all the things that we try to do. And I think I put on there an approximate completion date of generously fall of this year.
Yeah, you've got that on it. I think it's
Right.
September, October.
Okay.
And we worked with our roadmaster Rick coordinate with Commissioner Sound, he's the liaison to the road department.
Right, good. But see, this allows us to concentrate in this area and get this, because our other project covers a lot of ground. And so rather than have us going, you know, bouncing back and forth too much, we can come down here and get this portion of the project completed, and then that allows us, you know, late fall into winter until we can't get out there anymore, and then early spring to get out on our other portion of that, the waypoint part of it, so.
Very good.
Any questions?
Now, on the ordinance that the county have, there was one error on a road in Christmas Valley, and we got that corrected, correct, Denise?
Before we adopted it, we corrected that.
I'll bring it, old plate for
And
everything.
we need to make sure that the correction is attached so it's visible.
Yeah, the verbiage should be
The
there.
verbiage was changed.
Yeah, it was all that.
I want to talk to him about like old plate for a minute.
Okay.
Yes.
I'd like to relinquish the remainder of my time to Mr. colleagues.
In the past, when we first started riding to this area or into Lake County, we started out in the Bend area or Chamalt area, and then we rode through over to Summer Lake, and then we kind of headed north and ended up in Christmas Valley. And then we went north from there up through the desert up to Highway 20 to finish that. And we've made that route many times now. But with the road, with the county roads being opened up, in the past, the sheriff's department has allowed us to go from the Black Hills turn to Christmas Valley, the town, which is about a mile and a half, I think, route there, and that's straight east. And so now that that's closed, we don't have a connector anymore from the South Desert into Christmas Valley, the town, that I can find anyway. I've looked at some things, and I think on the way home Saturday, I was looking at another way to get there, but I'm not sure that's gonna work either. But so my question is number one is, I'm hoping we could try to find a solution to that, because that really shuts off a lot of access into Christmas Valley from the south completely. We can't get into the town in OHVs anymore, so.
And
You can't legally get into
I
that.
can't legally, right, and we don't, you know, obviously we want to be legal, and we can't, and we try to do that.
Basically, from Black Hills, that mile and a half, to the intersection there at the Chevron.
To the store.
And the Christmas Valley Road is closed, so we also had to address crossing, the same as what we're working on with the.
Right, but we can legally cross there if that was open, right? So, and then from there, we can just head right up the street.
So you would
Get
come
out.
into Old Lake Road there, right up there at that real sharp corner.
Correct,
You
yeah.
come in right there and go that roughly 2 miles or whatever. it is.
Right, and so my proposal is that, that you might consider looking at that. So because that has cut us off from a really good route that we like to do. I mean, I'm not talking about me personally, but a lot of other people, you know, we brought a lot of people up through that route before in the past with permission. We've done it 4 times, and in the past, that hasn't really been legally open, but your
Off the top
previous
of my
sheriff
head,
is.
that one there, it seems like that would be, I would think Rick would agree, we could probably amend for that. No promises, but I drove that road a lot, and that's a straight stretch down through there, and
It
it's probably
is.
used a whole bunch by the farmers right now with their ATVs.
Yeah, and we, in the times that we've gone through there, and we've gone in and back out at times too, because we've just been traveling down. See, if we recreate in the South Desert, the low Christmas Valley, we have to be able to get in there to get fuel, even if we don't cross and go north. It's an access point to us to refuel and get supplies. So if we were able to get through there, in the past when we've gone up that, we haven't ever passed a car on that road. I know we could, and I know there may be some traffic there, but it is a good line of sight. You know, we're careful when we go through there, and it would just allow more opportunity when we try to encourage people to come into Christmas Valley anyway. Right now, they can't get in there from the south, they can only get in from the north side, which is not even really as viable, in my opinion, for people to do that. So anyway, it's a really important connector into that community.
Well, Commissioners, I was talking to Rob earlier about working out some language for an amendment to the attachment A, specifically over on 1-11, there's a little problem with getting across there to Dog Lake Road that Rob Thornton wanted to work on. So while I work with him on the amendment language for that, maybe we could throw that in there, some suggested language that would help out.
Yeah, and you know, you were asking me about that, and I'm trying to figure out where the bottleneck there is. Dog Lake Lane, there's a road straight across from there that you can get from just about any place to. Where is it that you can't cross, or you can't get across or travel?
But perhaps I'm wrong about it, but when I looked at 1-11 and the access route that was pointed out to me, I couldn't find any way of getting there legally without actually traveling on 1-11 for a short distance.
Okay.
And it's because the intersecting roads in that area didn't come to a four-way intersection, they were all T intersections that would make them require that.
It's probably so, I just would have to see it. I'm fishing in my mind trying to figure out where that is.
Rob Thornton and I will flesh all that out.
Okay.
And if a change is needed, then we'll come up with the language to do that.
Okay.
Yeah, those are the only, I think those are the only 2 points, and everything else works pretty good to be able to access without that one. Thank you for letting us present that portion of that too. I appreciate your consideration on
And
that.
again, I had 2 weeks out, so roadmaster wasn't here, but working through Commissioner Town as the roadmaster.
Well, we'll be back. We'll have to come down again. But we put some writing in on this strip, so that's.
What part of the county are you guys riding in this week?
Well, we were headed out to Mud Lake area.
Good
And
choice.
then, but Daniel called me this morning from Warm Springs and was telling me about a place north of Flush that we should go see too. But we've got 3 days of writing to do, so we'll probably.
Our facilities guy just done the Mud Lake out through there, went out to the Shirt Branch. It's a great ride out there. Yeah, that's a great ride. You get to see
Yeah,
some
we've got a
great-
couple new people that haven't been out there. They're gonna be with us today. John and I have been out there, but, we'll be headed out that way.
Talking about a Shirk Ranch in that general area, you also have the refuge, Hard Mountain Refuge right there.
Shirt Branch is on the refuge now, part of the refuge.
Is it?
Yep.
Wow, okay, so they brought that.
Part of the Shirk Ranch was given to the BLM management.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I thought
It used to be, but they did, this is years ago.
it's a
BLM
track.
owns
It should
the
still be
ranch
used.
site,
It's
I
just
know
gonna
that.
fall.
BLM has possession of the ranch site, I
Yes,
know
of
that.
the site itself.
So I stand corrected, and I thought Hard Mountain ended up with that, the BLM did. How'd they end up with more property? We're usually opposed to that.
Yeah. This was, happened right before I came on from the Forest Service.
You don't blame it on me.
I was not commissioner at the time.
I don't know where that's going. Yeah.
But the key thing is, getting with Rick, our roadmaster.
Right.
His name's come up a lot today.
Yep.
Any other questions?
Nope, I'm good. Appreciate you guys coming and presenting.
Well, we know your time is precious and we appreciate you being able to meet with
I
us
was
today.
expecting all
and
these
in the past.
pictures of you guys out riding and everything.
Yeah.
You guys are all.
I made this
technical today.
presentation. If Wade had made this presentation, we would have had pictures of him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, at the 192 meeting last Friday, when Jeff was showing different things, and we was talking about age, and like our ordinance says, I forget what age, but it had to be with adult and so forth. He had one photo up there of 4 or 5 ATVs, and every person on each ATV looked like a kid.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
I don't know who did those photos. One of the pictures in the beginning was one that I sent to him. That's, because Detroit, the town of Detroit, they've opened up their small community to OHV. So there's a sign, that sign that was in the very first part of that presentation. I took that picture up the other day. I didn't know that they had, but they're hoping for the 192 thing to get fixed. They didn't even know about it when I went in there and talked to them. And I told them about it, and then they were happy to hear that. So.
Well, out of all these speedsters, I'm the old guy, so.
It's okay.
Yeah. You do wear a seatbelt.
So are you guys riding
We both
side by
ride.
sides, or are you riding four Wheelers or two-wheelers?
Quads, yeah.
Yeah, well, before we go.
Yamaha Grizzlies.
Well,
John and I, last time John and I came up, we had my side-by-side. It has a cab, we were here in, what, November?
Yeah.
It was a little cold, so we had that with the heater in it.
We can't.
The overall gist on the grant you guys got, you covered land management, Forest Service, and you augment on ATV routes and non-routes, right?
Yeah, it's gonna cover whatever, that money's gonna go to the direction that is needed at the time. That, the grant isn't specific enough to where we have to put a certain portion of that anywhere. So, our priority, since Lake County helped us put in that grant and get that done, our priority is Lake County. And then secondarily would be the BLM. So, would you agree with that?
I would.
Okay.
in the future, BLM's gonna be going through their travel management process. I'm pretty active on the road inventory part of that. You guys will need to be at the table and be a voice when they start the travel management process.
We're looking ahead to that, and we appreciate, input from you on that. I've been in contact with Chris Knopf, Chris. He's the OHV recreational lead planner for Oregon and Washington. And he was at our meeting, Commissioner, that he was just a couple down from you on that same side over there. But we've known Chris for quite a while, and he's indicated that he wants to help us get some of that, like in this area especially. He knows the area pretty good. He's served in here, and so getting routes identified and connectors identified so that when that process is happening, we're a little bit ahead of that game. So
Good.
that's another project we're kind of working on. So.
Good deal.
That one person from Eugene, 2 meetings ago, well, maybe the first meeting we had out at the fairgrounds, made the statement that we want the folks from Eugene and other cities on that side to come over and visit so that they can get to know us. There's always that divide between the west and the east, and the only way you get that divide more homogeneous is to interact. And he was very keen on getting to know Lake County with his patriots.
It's interesting because if you visit with people, you figure out that people are people, and even though you have an agenda or a mission that you want to get something done, I found people generally to be pretty good. There's a few out there that are difficult, but when we rode this, was it last year when we met the hiker? It was this last one, we were riding in Milwaukee, and we ran across this guy that was hiking that new hiking trail that's not designated, but
The Oregon Desert Trail.
That's it. And so he hiked, when he was done, he was gonna hike 740 miles. And he was we saw him on the last day that he was there, but we ran across him for about 3 days. But I stopped every time, when I see those people out there, I stop and talk to them. Now, some of them are not polite, but most of them will at least be somewhat cordial. Well, we got to kind of know him a little bit because we saw him more than once. And I'd stop back there and talk to him for a minute, and I was in the back of the group on that. And anyway, I gave him my card, and I said, when you get home, he said, I'm gonna make a video of my trip, I said, well, would you send that to me? I'd like to see that. Because I was just fascinated by him hiking all that distance. Because he just had this little backpack on, and these wore-out looking tennis shoe hiking things on his feet. But he sent that to me, and I've talked to him on the email a couple of times, so that's probably not going anywhere, but at least.
What is his name?
His name's Matt, but I don't remember his last name. But he sent us a link to his video, and I looked at that, and he makes these beautiful Western hats, beaver.
Full brim
felt
hats?
Yeah, everything. He has a website, and I'll email that link to you, and if you like it. But anyway, so you just try to make a difference, with people, and when you talk to them, sometimes that helps. And if you can get them in your environment, we've stopped and given water to people that have been out of water on mountain bikes before, and it hopefully changes things. I don't mean to go on and on, but we had an article of our group when we made the ride down here that was printed in the Source magazine in Central Oregon. I don't know if you're familiar with that magazine, but it's a very, I don't know, should I say it's left-wing, but anyway, it's a very kind of a liberal type of magazine, but it's good, it has a lot of good stuff in it. but a friend of mine is a naturalist, and he asked me about the trip that we made, and he said, well, I'd like to write an article about you guys and put that in that magazine. Well, that's something you normally would never see in that magazine. But he wrote this good article about, it was called Doing It Right. And he talked about how we did things and how we're responsible, and they printed that in there. And so there was some good positive.
Well, I think you're talking the way this board is, there's a balance. There's a balance for all of it, whether you're the hiker or you're the ATV or you're the hunter. We have to come to a balance.
Yeah.
The reason why we all heard up when we talk about the hiker is because this trail, the 740-mile trail, we're not opposed to trails, but some of the behind the thoughts of why this trail can be beneficial for special interest groups we're opposed to. And Commissioner Kestner and Shell know if you have the right connection to another trail, then that trail can become designated, and you can't even have noise or any objection to the scenery and everything. I don't know exactly, I'm not articulating.
Well, it has the
Yeah.
ability to, because of its federal
Designation, yeah.
That's the National Recreation Trail, which is different than the National Scenic or the National Historic Trails. Those last two got them extremely tight. The National Recreation is pretty much open to anything. But the concern there of them coming up out of the desert, connecting on a forest trail to gain that destination, then within the Bureau of Land Management, and the Bureau of Land Management would be the regulatory agency over that trail because it's predominantly Bureau of Land Management lands. But there's a little statement in the Bureau of Land Management regulations on trails that the Interior Department can apply additional regulations, and we like to guard against that for our multiple use aspect. And that's why my emphasis is more we can interact with these folks to educate them on multiple use, includes ATV. It goes a lot farther than combativeness between the conservative and...
But interesting, that trail was posted at our local post office.
Yes. And other places around town.
Yeah, it's getting pretty well known.
It's,
You know, we promote shared use. Although we're rooted in the OHD community, shared use is important to us. So
Have you ran into anybody riding horses on any of the trails?
I have, yeah,
And been acceptable both ways?
yeah. You know, it's all, with that, it's all about educating the public, you know, of what to do when that happens. And where John and I work with the youth, that's one thing that's specifically addressed in there, an image from the Novak illustrations about what you do when you come up to somebody that might be on a horse. You know, that you stop and they tell them, the kids to take their helmet off, and mom and dad say, hey, don't talk to strangers, but in there it says to talk to them. But I think it's just more education of the public about how to handle that. We need to just learn how to interact, you know. I run into a lot of mountain bikers at times. I run into a few people on horses, and I stop, you know, and I always give them the right of way. Always. Just, I don't even think about whether I have it or not, I just do it. And so,
but how's the education of that to, not you, because you already do it, but to other ATV users?
yeah, so a lot of that's coming through the safety and education program that John set up in the state of Oregon, pretty much. I mean, he's really responsible. I'm not trying to patronize you, but he was...
As long as I don't have to say it.
Yeah, you know, when you see the ATV safety program for the state of Oregon, that's the education pieces of that. John is the one that put pretty much most of that together and applied that, so.
Also, all the instructors in the state of Oregon, not only with the ATV safety group, the national group, ASI, but also the 4-H that has the statewide training program for the youth. It's a required segment in each one of those training classes that we talk to the youth about all these issues, especially the shared use roads and especially horses.
So the youth are being trained now, and so what we'll see is a generation coming in that's better educated, that has better practices. You know, we hope anyway.
And this generation?
Yeah, well, we're past that generation.
We're working on that.
It's the ones in the middle. So, yeah.
Well, I can tell you in the last few years, because I've been riding with them just in the last few years, And going out with these gentlemen is an education in itself, because they teach you the right way to do things. And it's very gratifying to see the way that they are with our public lands. To go out and know how they treat them and what they recognize and what they teach. And so it was very gratifying for me and my wife, because we've ridden with Wade and his wife and others that come out in the group, and they're always teaching. They're always teaching, and they bring a lot of people into different areas. And that's a big plus for you too, where just like me, they bring me down into this area and they teach me all the time, so.
No, that's great. I think the issue always will be, and I like the shared use comment. I'm so used to talking multiple use, which is essentially the same thing on our public lands. But the unfortunate part, and that's just part of human nature, is we've got users out there that don't get exposed to that, and they could care less. We see it in our recreation, in our camping. Most people leave the site better than how they found it. But there's that faction that just trashes it. And it's the same way, it's going to be the same way with ATVs. And just hopefully over time they get educated to the fact that this is a privilege to be able to do this, and it can be taken away. And it'll affect a lot of really good folks. So
I talk to thousands of kids about ATV, and I always mention that they are ambassadors for everybody else in the entire world that are riding ATVs. Because if one person observes them doing something wrong, that wrongness transmits through the entire sport. And so everybody has to be on their guard at all times, make sure they're always doing the right thing. The other thing that a lot of non-riders don't consider when they think about ATV riders, they have a perception. But that perception, I think, hopefully can change over time, especially with the older generation, maybe with the handicap group, that now have the ability to access public areas that were heretofore unavailable to them, because they can get into a side-by-side. Maybe they couldn't ride a quad or a motorcycle or a horse or a bicycle, and certainly couldn't walk. But now they can get in a side-by-side and get to somewhere like the top of Crane Mountain.
And it's become more of a family
Yes.
endeavor.
And that's needed.
Yep. Well, great, thanks, guys.
You took up a lot of your time, but again, thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Got me out of Rotary. Thank you.
That may be a double fine if
Yeah.
they watch that on
Yeah.
video.
Don't show that part.
Okay.